Hidden beneath the ground lies a kingdom at war, a world where loyalty is absolute, where sacrifice is daily, and where danger comes from all directions, even from within. In this episode of BattleAnts, you'll witness not one, not two, but three brutal wars that pushed the Ant Kingdom to its very limits. Betrayal, invasion, survival. Welcome to the front line of insect warfare. This is BattleAnts. They laid siege to the colony from within. They stole food and killed the queen. But that wasn't even the worst of their crimes. Welcome to my channel, and today we're exploring the terrifying truth behind one of nature's greatest heists. In 2000, scientists discovered a new species of parasitic wasp in the jungles of Borneo. They named it the zombie ant kicker. Its scientific name is Clistopyga carumba, but that's not nearly as fun to say. So I'm just going to call it the kicker. And funnily enough, its preferred method of attack is also called the kick. You see, when the kicker lays its eggs, they don't hatch into little wasps. They hatch into something else entirely, something that looks exactly like an ordinary ant larva. The kicker larvae are so convincing that even the most seasoned foragers can't tell them apart from their colony mates. These master disguise artists rely on a combination of stealth and trickery to fool their unsuspecting victims. They control the rate at which they grow by slowing down their metabolism, allowing them to blend in with ants of different ages. And they get even more creative when it comes to their smell. Normally, each colony has a distinct odor that helps its members identify each other. But the kicker larvae can mimic these scents by stealing the chemicals that make them up. This is done by licking their abdomens on the ground or on other ants, picking up their scent. Some foragers have even been observed rubbing their bodies on the corpses of dead ants, likely to absorb their pheromones. The end result is so perfect that it often takes experienced scientists years to spot the difference. And once the kicker has infiltrated the colony, it begins its campaign of sabotage from the bottom up. In some species, the male and female parasites team up. The females begin their deception as soon as they hatch, pretending to be helpless larvae. Meanwhile, the males play the role of diligent worker, gathering food for their fake siblings. Although there's some debate over whether the male kickers actually serve any purpose other than fertilization. When the females are ready to mate, they release a pheromone that attracts potential suitors. The males line up and forcibly inseminate each of the females in turn, and then they all die. Females will store the sperm in special sacs until it's time to lay their eggs, which they do by surreptitiously implanting them in the colony's egg chamber. While the eggs develop, the foragers continue collecting food for the colony, unknowingly supporting their parasitic neighbors. Then the moment of truth arrives. The foragers bring the parasite's eggs back to the nest and drop them off in the chamber. Because the fake larvae have grown to the size of real ones, they blend right in. But that's just the beginning. The foragers also bring back the larvae that will eventually hatch into more kickers, further strengthening their numbers. And this goes on until every single ant egg in the colony has been replaced by a parasite egg. The foragers return to the nest several times per day to feed the growing population. And although the queen continues laying eggs of her own, she doesn't realize that her entire colony is being raised by the enemy. When the parasitic larvae are fully grown, they emerge and immediately begin searching for fig wasps to lay their eggs in. The fig wasps, which are closely related to ants, serve as both their home and their pantry. So the kicker larvae kill the fig wasps, devour their eggs, and pupate, then emerge as adult parasites ready to start the process all over again. But before we wrap up this tale of total betrayal, we need to talk about how the colony falls apart from the inside out. As the kicker population grows, it begins taking over the colony, pushing the ants farther and farther out of their own home. The foragers find it harder and harder to get back to the fig, so they spend less time gathering food and more time defending it against the parasites. But it's a losing battle. The parasitized colony becomes weaker and weaker as the kicker horde grows larger and hungrier. Eventually, the saboteurs seize the fig entirely and set about dismantling the colony from the inside. They target the eggs first, devouring them to prevent any more real ants from hatching. Then they move on to the brood, killing the larvae and pupae. Finally, they turn their attention to the queen. She fights back at first, but a single kicker can take on a queen ant all by itself. Workers try to protect her, but they're hopelessly outnumbered. And with the colony's food supply under the control of their enemies, the workers can't keep themselves alive, let alone wage a war they're destined to lose. By the time the queen finally gives up, the colony is already half destroyed. And as the kickers move on to the final chamber, they kill her and eat her eggs. The colony is now theirs. The foragers abandon the fig, realizing there's no hope of victory. The kicker horde emerges victorious and immediately begins its transformation. From colony to colony, the fig slowly fills with parasites instead of ants. The colony is now a hive of kickers and the massacre is over. So why haven't the ants evolved to defend themselves against this parasitic threat? Well, it's because the kicker has a few tricks left up its sleeve. First of all, remember how the larvae pretend to be helpless infants? Well, that's not acting. They really are helpless. The parasites sacrifice their ability to forage in order to better blend in with the ant brood. And while that means they can't get the fig wasps to feed them, they're able to force the ants to do it for them. Secondly, kickers have developed a way to avoid detection. You see, ants communicate through touch and chemical signals, but the kicker larvae have evolved to block the signals that would otherwise alert the colony to their presence. This allows them to grow undetected until it's too late to stop them. And thirdly, the kicker is constantly evolving. Each generation, it mutates slightly, becoming even better at avoiding detection and even more successful at finding figs. So the ants simply can't evolve quickly enough to keep up. It's a strange twist of fate that ants, known for their cooperation and organization, should be brought down by a parasite that relies on deception and subterfuge. But the kicker isn't the only parasite out there pulling off daring raids. Take for instance, the parasitic jewel beetle, which lays its eggs inside the bodies of stag beetles. When the eggs hatch, the larvae begin eating away at their host, weakening it over time. Once the stag beetle dies, the parasite larvae leave its body and pupate in the surrounding leaf litter. Then they emerge as adult jewel beetles and fly off to find new stag beetles to parasitize. Or consider the lancet liver fluke, a parasite that turns ants into zombies. Seriously, the fluke's eggs hatch into larvae that infect snails. The larvae then migrate to ants, where they set up shop in the insect's brain. There, they manipulate the ant's behavior, turning it into what's known as a functional zombie. The infected ant acts natural, tricking its colony mates into thinking everything's all right. But after a few weeks, the parasite takes over entirely. The zombie ant leaves the colony and begins searching for a twig or leaf to lock its jaw on. As it slowly loses control of its body, the other ants think the whole thing is pretty funny, swarming around their comrade and biting its legs. But the zombification process is almost complete. And when the other ants leave to get back to work, the fluke takes its final bite, locking the zombie's jaw in a death grip and turning the colony's most diligent worker into the very thing it once protected. When it comes to parasites, the line between predator and prey is razor thin. Sometimes the hunter becomes the hunted, and sometimes the prey ends up hunting the hunter. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like. If you want to learn more about parasites, check out this playlist. Thank you for watching. The colony fell, but the war was far from over. In our next story, the queen doesn't run, she fights back. Part 2. The Queen's Last Stand. This is one of the most epic insect stories I've ever heard. So this colony of leafcutter ants was minding their own business, just doing the normal ant stuff, until one day they were invaded by army ants, which are these huge predatory ants that will attack anything in sight. So the colony was completely overrun by these army ants. It was terrible. But the story doesn't end there, because right when things were looking their bleakest, the soldier ants formed a living wall around the queen to defend her with their lives. And they did exactly that. They literally sacrificed themselves to protect their queen and their colony. Now, this isn't like a normal ant colony where the queen lays eggs and then dies. No, this queen is the heart and soul of the entire colony. Without her, the colony dies. As you're about to see, she is super important. So the army ants keep attacking the colony, but the soldiers keep fighting them off, wave after wave. Literally thousands of ants died protecting her. But as we'll soon see, it may have all been for nothing. The thing is, there were simply too many army ants, and they eventually overwhelmed the defenders. But here's the thing, just when it seemed like all hope was lost and the queen was going to be killed, somehow she managed to escape. She barely made it out alive. But as you're about to see, the colony was pretty much destroyed. But not entirely, because somehow they managed to start over from scratch. Now let me explain what happened here. You see, this clip starts off with some ants carrying food back to the nest. But then we see something really shocking. This enormous army ant literally swallows a fly hole. These army ants are truly terrifying, and they will kill anything in sight. Even other ants, these army ants are on the hunt, and they found this leafcutter ant colony. These army ants aren't messing around. This is war. We can see these soldiers trying to defend their colony. But these army ants are relentless. There's simply too many of them. And if that wasn't bad enough, this colony had recently stung by a bullet ant, which is known to have one of the most painful stings on Earth. So they already lost one of their soldiers, and things are going downhill fast. I think it's safe to say that this colony is pretty much doomed at this point. But wait, hold up, what's that? We see a single soldier guarding something very important. In the center of the frame, there's a white blob being protected by this soldier. That white blob is actually the queen. This is the most important ant in the entire colony. If the army ants kill her, then the colony is done for, because without the queen, the colony dies. This soldier is putting his life on the line to protect her. But wait, hold up, why is he protecting her so fiercely? What's so special about this queen? Well, you see, queens lay eggs, and once those eggs hatch, they become new members of the colony. So basically, if this queen dies, then the colony dies. Now, I know it might seem kind of silly that we care so much about a tiny little bug, but these ants are actually super fascinating. For starters, their colonies can reach up to 8,000 members. They farm their own fungus to eat. They cut leaves to take back to their nest. Their larvae make a special clicking sound to tell the worker ants how hungry they are. They have a two-part stomach where they store different foods for different times. And even though they're blind, they're still able to find food using their incredible sense of smell. So yes, these ants are pretty amazing, but that doesn't change the fact that this colony is under attack. And it looks like the end is near because there are simply too many army ants. Even though the soldiers are bravely defending their colony, it seems like it's only a matter of time before the army ants break through. And this is probably what the end of the colony looked like. You see, this is what happens when an entire colony of leafcutter ants is attacked by army ants. Here we can see some of the workers and soldiers fighting back. But there's simply too many army ants and they just keep coming, wave after wave. It's like an endless horde. It's also interesting to note that these army ants travel in these huge long lines, kind of like a parade of death. I mean, look at this line of army ants. It's pretty impressive. They're also known as marching ants because they travel in these massive groups. When they set their sights on something, they will stop at nothing until they get it. And unfortunately, it seems like the leafcutter ant colony is about to be wiped out completely. But before that happens, something very unexpected occurs. The queen was carried out of the nest by one of the soldiers. Yes, the queen was saved, but this is actually super rare, because usually the queen is one of the first to go. This soldier put its life on the line to save the queen, and there were hundreds of these brave soldiers. They literally formed a living wall around the queen to protect her, and it worked. But as we're about to see, it may have been all for nothing, because although the queen was saved, it looks like the colony was pretty much destroyed. Let's take a moment to appreciate the sheer number of ants that were sacrificed in this battle. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of ants died protecting their colony. That's truly inspiring. Here we can see a close-up of the carnage. All these dead ants were once part of a thriving colony, but now they're just a pile of corpses. But wait, hold up. Is that the end of the story? Well, it could be, but it doesn't have to be. Because here's the thing. This colony may be destroyed, but it doesn't mean it's over because the queen survived. As long as the queen is alive, then the colony can be rebuilt. So although it may seem like all was lost, that's not the case, because now the queen can start a new colony. In the meantime, I am just gonna appreciate how cool it is that we were able to witness this battle firsthand. Imagine being there in person. It would be like watching an army of tiny little warriors fight to the death. And even though the leafcutter ants lost this battle, they won the war, because even though the colony was damaged, it can be rebuilt, and that's kind of beautiful. It's like when a forest burns down. Although the trees are gone, they'll grow back over time, and it's the same for this colony. Sure, they lost a lot of their members, but as long as the queen is alive, then the colony can continue on, and that's pretty amazing. These ants are truly inspiring. They're willing to sacrifice everything to protect their colony. That's why they live in these huge colonies, because they know that together they are stronger than they are alone. Also, it's worth mentioning that this is just one example of how amazing nature is. There's so much more out there that we don't know about. Who knows, maybe there's a colony of leafcutter ants out there right now, that's being attacked by army ants, and maybe they'll be able to rebuild their colony after the attack. We'll never know unless we go out there and explore the world. Speaking of exploring, if you want to see more videos like this, then be sure to stay tuned. Thanks for watching. They survived the invasion, but now their future is being stolen in silence. An unseen enemy lurks inside the shadows of their own nest. Part 3. The Egg Thief in the Dead of Night. While all of the ants are sleeping, a tiny insect sneaks into their nest. It makes its way through the tunnels, locating a chamber filled with hundreds of ant eggs. What happens next is pure evil. The creature proceeds to steal some of the eggs, replacing them with pebbles. It then scurries back out of the nest as quickly as it came, leaving no trace of its presence behind. The next morning, when the worker ants wake up, they get to work right away. They take care of the colony, tending to their plants, gathering food and defending the nest. However, one of the workers soon notices something strange. There's an egg missing from the nursery. At first, he thinks he must have just misplaced it, but as the day goes on, more and more eggs begin to disappear. Soon, it becomes clear that something very wrong is happening in their colony. Deep in the tunnels of the anthill, an alarm has been raised. The queen's eggs are being stolen, and all of the workers are searching for the culprit. But where do they even begin to look? Well, of course, they send out a scouting party. While they search outside of the nest, we pan over to our little thief. He's sitting comfortably in his own nest, which is made up of the stolen eggs. He's too lazy to gather food today, so he simply sits around enjoying his ill-gotten gains. After several hours, the scouting party returns with bad news. They haven't found the thief, but they did find plenty of half-eaten eggs outside of the anthill. The workers all agree that this must be the work of a robber ant. They're known for stealing eggs and larvae from other colonies. But who would want to rob this colony? This is one of the most powerful ant species in the world. Their sting is incredibly painful, and they will defend their colony to the death. As the sun sets, it's time for the ants to go back to work. A group of workers set up a perimeter around the nest, while others stand guard at the entrance. They don't know what kind of threat they're dealing with, but they're prepared for anything. After all, they are the army of the colony. If anyone or anything gets within 10 feet of their nest, they attack. As the night drags on, the ants become increasingly frustrated. They can feel the thief watching them from outside the nest, but they can't figure out how to lure him inside. If they could, they would be able to trap him and get revenge for their stolen eggs. But unfortunately, they don't have any tricks up their sleeves. Back at the robber ant's hideout, he's feeling pretty good about himself. He got away with a ton of eggs, and there's nothing the ants can do to stop him. He settles in for the night, ready to dream about all the delicious meals he'll make from his stolen goods. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps wakes him up. He peeks out of his den and sees a line of ants marching toward him. They're carrying weapons, and their mandibles are wide open, ready to strike. The robber ant tries to run, but it's too late. The ants surround him and tear him to pieces. They drag his body back to their nest, where they hang him upside down from a leaf as a warning to other would-be thieves. From now on, nobody will dare steal from these ants, and their colony will continue to thrive. But what if the thief wasn't an outsider? What if he had been living among them the whole time? That's right, you've been tricked again. It was the soldier ant all along. Soldier ants are known for their bravery and strength. They are always willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect their colony. But sometimes their courage gets the better of them, and they end up making big mistakes. One day, a soldier ant was guarding the entrance to the anthill when he saw a group of robber ants approaching. He knew that if they got inside, they would steal all of the eggs and larvae. So he did something crazy. He opened the entrance to the anthill and let the robber ants in. Of course, this was a huge mistake. The robber ants stole everything in sight, and the soldier ant was left to watch helplessly. But before they left, they dropped off one of their number. He was injured and couldn't make it back to the robber ant hill. The soldier ant knew that if his colony mates found out he had let the robber ants in, he would be in big trouble. So he took the injured ant and hid him in a secret chamber. He visited him every day, bringing him food and water until he healed. But as the weeks went on, the soldier ant began to feel something strange. He didn't know what it was, but he didn't like it. It made him feel sick to his stomach, and he couldn't figure out why. One day, he was visiting the robber ant when it hit him. The reason he'd been feeling sick was because he was hanging out with a robber ant. He had betrayed his colony and helped their sworn enemies. He felt horrible, and he knew that he had to do something to make amends. So he started bringing back more food for the colony. He risked his life every day to get more food for them, and eventually, they forgot all about the stolen eggs. The soldier ant became a hero again. and he never spent another minute with the robber ants. The ants were once again thriving, and the soldier ant was happy to be a part of their colony. But deep down, he knew that he could never forgive himself for what he had done. One day, a young ant approached the soldier ant. He was one of the new recruits, and he wanted to learn about the history of their colony. The soldier ant was happy to share his knowledge, and he told the young ant all about the time he had let the robber ants in. He was ashamed of what he had done, but he knew that it was important to be honest. The young ant was shocked. He couldn't believe that the brave soldier ant would ever do such a thing. But then the soldier ant did something that made the young ant's jaw drop. He led him to the secret chamber where he had hidden the injured robber ant. The young ant was amazed. He couldn't believe that the soldier ant had actually kept the robber ant alive. From that day on, the young ant looked up to the soldier ant even more. He saw him as a role model and wanted to be just like him when he grew up. The soldier ant was honored, but he knew that he didn't deserve the respect. Still, he continued to do his duty and protect his colony, hoping that one day they would forget all about what he had done. But one day, disaster struck. The colony was under attack by a rival colony. The ants were fighting each other, and the soldier ant was right in the middle of it. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his leg. He had been bitten by a venomous ant, and he knew that he wouldn't make it. As he lay dying, he thought about all the times he had failed his colony. He had let the robber ants in, and now he was going to die protecting the colony from their rivals. He felt terrible, but then he saw the young ant. He was fighting bravely against the enemy, and the soldier ant felt a sense of pride. Maybe his colony would be okay after all. The soldier ant died protecting his colony, and they won the battle. But as the days went on, the young ant began to notice things. The soldier ant had been right. They had been getting weaker because of the lack of eggs, and with their numbers dwindling, they were no match for the other colonies. The young ant was determined to fix this, but he didn't know where to start. Then he remembered the secret chamber. He went to see the deposed queen and asked her for permission to use the chamber. She agreed, and the young ant got to work. He gathered food and water for the ants, and he guarded them day and night. Slowly but surely, the colony began to grow stronger, and the young ant became the new soldier ant, the protector of the colony. He never forgot what the old soldier ant had taught him, and he vowed to do better. Every day, he would visit the grave of the old soldier ant and tell him all about the colony. He knew that the old soldier ant would be proud of them. The colony thrived under the young ant's leadership, and the old soldier ant was remembered as a hero. His grave became a shrine, and the young ant knew that he had big shoes to fill. Every day, he worked hard to make sure that the colony was strong and thriving, and he never forgot the lesson that the old soldier ant had taught him. 3 wars. 3 turning points. 1. Unbreakable truth. In the world of ants, survival isn't about strength. It's about unity, instinct, and sacrifice. These were just a few battles, but the war beneath our feet never ends. Subscribe to BattleAnts for more insect warfare stories, because the next invasion is already crawling in.